The first component, as Brian was saying, aims to provide clarity on global phosphorus emissions, the drivers, and the impacts. So I will invite Philip Taylor and Helen Coskeran to make the presentation of this component. Philip is an environmental data scientist at UKCEH and will lead in the development of the uPcycle Global Phosphorus Dashboard. And then Helen Coskeran will be co-leading this component, and she has a background in international project and research management in the academic, nonprofit, and private sectors. Before I handle it to you, I'll say it in Spanish. So, gracias, Brian. Para avanzar hacia la gestión sostenible del fósforo, el proyecto va a ser ejecutado a través de principalmente 4 componentes que están interrelacionados. En esta sección, los co-líderes de cada componente nos van a dar una breve explicación de cada uno de ellos. El primer componente, como estaba comentando Brian hace un ratito, tiene como objetivo proporcionar una mayor claridad sobre las emisiones, los impulsores y los impactos globales del fósforo. Los co-líderes de este componente son Philip Taylor y Helen Coskeran, y ellos nos van a hacer la presentación de este componente. Philip es un científico de datos ambientales en UKCEH y va a liderar el desarrollo de una plataforma global de fósforo. Y Helen Coskeran tiene experiencia en gestión de proyectos e investigaciones internacionales en los sectores académicos, privados y en ONGs. So welcome, Philip and Helen.
Thanks, Natalie. Just going to share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. So yeah, this is component 1, and as has been described, it's what we've said is it's increasing clarity on global phosphorus emissions, drivers and impacts. I tend to think of this one as sort of bringing data together and bringing people together. So it's connecting everyone up with a global focus. And it's being led by myself and Helen. Helen will take you through a couple of the subtasks as we move along. Just to explain the component as a whole, though, it's really got these 3 subcomponents within it. One is to build this global phosphorus emissions dashboard and everything that's required to do that. And a lot of that is about bringing data together and then showing that data to the public. Secondly, it's got this cross-sector working group, and there'll be 2 global workshops for those stakeholders. Again, very important, but bringing people together. And finally, there's this white paper that's one of the main outputs from that. And as you can see there, it's a little description of what we're aiming for, and this will be developed slightly further down the line as we get to grips with all the people and stakeholders with this work. So I'll start by just explaining this global phosphorus emissions dashboard. As I say, this has sort of 2 main jobs, and one of those is bringing that data together. So it's finding all of the useful global data sets that can help explain and can be used to analyze phosphorus emissions into water bodies. And importantly, that is at different scales. So we might be looking at lake basins. The LME is a large marine ecosystem. So it's also got a marine element to it, and also national, regional, and global scale resolutions. So we're trying to build something that can be useful across all of those different scales. And then once we've got the data sets together, it's about putting those onto a dashboard, as we've called it. Hopefully a very online presence and a dynamic one that you can explore those data sets and get to understand how all of that information explains what's happening on the ground in terms of phosphorus at all of those different scales. You could see essentially what I've just described, but in terms of deliverables there and roughly when we're aiming to have those. You'll see there that the workshop 1 has already happened. So data inputs, we brought together a couple of organizations just to start looking at global data sets and what is available. And I'll move on to that one now. So a couple of workshops, we had 2 separate meetings as part of the workshop. They happened in October last year, just bringing those organizations together that have really useful global data sets and to start discussing what else could be added to that, what other sources are there. And very much this is me sending out a plea to everyone. If you have data that you think would be useful for this global assessment, please do get in touch with me and we can discuss that. That workshop has produced a report. So we've got an initial report on the data inputs workshop, and that explains what came out of it as well. But I will show you a little bit of what did come out. So we've started building these global data sets. We've started bringing them together. We have a meta database so that we record all of the data, where it's from, the scale, what it's describing, the units, and all of these kinds of things. At the moment, they're roughly split into 3 categories. So we've got data on nutrients. We've got catchments where we can start analyzing things and those marine ecosystems as well. And we're starting to bring in like demographic data, population density, deprivation indexes, these kinds of things. But this will absolutely expand into different areas, different themes, and different data sets. So just a quick update on the progress. We've started analyzing some of those data sets that came out of the first workshop. As I say, they're global in scale. I'm just putting one on here. I think this is, this might have been a nitrogen data set, but it's just to show you the scale at which the data comes through. But also we're starting to look at how we're going to analyze that. So these outlines here are from hydrobasins data. So these are these are hydrographic catchments essentially, but they're presented at 12 different scales. So they're not necessarily related to a specific river or a specific lake, but they can be analyzed at these different scales. This is the largest one here. You can then start moving into much smaller scales, and this is the most detailed one. You can see I've just highlighted a little bit of Italy here to show these hydrological units. And also this is one of the global data sets. You could start seeing issues maybe with resolution and scale. So we're starting to explore these relationships and how useful these global data sets can be, and at what scale to analyze them, report them, and to put them onto the global dashboard. Just to finish on in terms of the data collation, these are these large marine ecosystems. These have been downloaded from the USGS. And again, this helps to start see not just where the emissions are coming into the fresh water, but where they might be coming out of that fresh water into the sea. As Sergio showed earlier with Lake Villarica, the river comes out, comes into the Pacific. What impact is that having? And also from this point of view, what impact is it having at a global scale? So that's where we are. We're bringing that data together. We're starting to look at it. We're starting to see what data sets are available to answer the questions we need to answer. But we are very much happy to have discussions for anyone who has data sets or knows of data sets that can add to this analysis. Helen, my colleague, will carry on from here. So Helen.
Great. Thanks very much, Phil, and great to see everybody today. As Phil said, he's taking care of the part of this component that's bringing data together. But we've heard several times already today about the importance of bringing people together and bringing together a diversity of views, and particularly because component 1 is looking at this very much at the global scale in complement to the case study in Chile in component 3. We're very keen to consult and get input as broadly as we can. So I'm going to run you through the 2 outputs that are centered around stakeholder engagement. This first one, output 1.2, includes 3 steps. So we're just getting started with mapping and convening a cross-sector working group. We'd like to convene the first online gathering of this group in June. So we're going to be working hard on that mapping exercise over the next couple of months with the aim of getting those conversations started. And the aim of that first workshop later this year will be to update those stakeholders on the progress that we've made after today and in the early stages of the project, and to start gathering views on drivers of global phosphorus emissions and some potential opportunities to address them. The idea is that we'll keep talking online and regularly throughout the rest of this year with a view to coming together, we hope in person in early 2025. We're tentatively thinking about doing that in Chile when other project meetings will be taking place, but we'll confirm those plans as we go along. And both of those workshops will result in reports which will be used in the white paper that Phil's already mentioned and which I'll say a bit more about in just a moment. Could you flick onto the next slide, please, Phil? So the mapping exercise is and the cross-sector working group resulting from that is going to take into account a number of sectors that have already been mentioned today. I've put up this graphic from our Phosphorus Future, a project that has also come up today that Will and Brian and Mark and others have been involved in the past. And this shows the overview of phosphorus flows. We've seen also iterations of this earlier today, but the industries and sectors that contribute to those flows or experience the impact of those flows importantly as well. So in terms of mining and processing at the top there, we'd be hoping to talk to animal feed and food additives producers, fertilizer and detergent producers. Within agriculture, we'd be looking to involve stakeholders in the areas of livestock, crops and aquaculture, as well as those involved in the policy and decision-making area of agriculture, and those working between policy and the farm, so agriculture extension services and community farming groups. On the human side, we'd be looking to understand more about the phosphorus footprint of diets, as Dana already mentioned in her presentation, and the impact of non-food products for humans like clothing and services and other manufactured goods. An important part of the cycle is waste management. Again, we've heard a couple of times in the scene setting section of today, so we'd be keen to involve stakeholders from the recycled phosphorus fertilizer sector. And more broadly, perhaps beyond this infographic, we'd be looking to talk to those witnessing the impacts of phosphorus emissions. So we've heard about lake restoration and the challenges there that phosphorus poses. Socioeconomic and gender-related impacts of these flows will importantly be a part of this working group. And then finally, we'll be in touch with the associations who are represented here today, so the European Sustainable Phosphorus Platform, the Sustainable Phosphorus Alliance, and we've already heard from the Global Partnership on Nutrient Management. If you could just move on to the next slide then, Phil, a word about output 1.3. This, as Phil said, will come a bit later on in the trajectory of component 1. And this is really the culmination of what happens in 1.2. So as we convene the cross-sector working group, produce those reports coming out of our workshops, that will feed into the production of a white paper, which will include sector-specific actions towards delivering a more sustainable global phosphorus cycle. The 5 drivers that we talked about and the priority actions for phosphorus emitting sectors will be the main feature of this report. And you'll hear a bit more from the project support unit later on. They'll be key in helping us to make sure that that white paper gets disseminated to the right stakeholders so that the recommendations within that can have real impact. And as you can see there on the slide, the timeline for this reflects the timeline of our workshops and hopefully gives us enough time to ensure we receive that wide-ranging input, both from the cross-sector working group and from the Global Phosphorus Emissions Assessment Group that Phil is working closely with. So just to flick through to the final slide then, please, Phil, some opportunities to work with us in the implementation of component 1. Phil's already given his plea for data for the dashboard, and if anyone's there who would like to provide data, join workshops, perhaps you have links. I know there's been some discussion already in the chat today about data related to the Chilean case study. You might have met some of our colleagues who were in Chile a couple of weeks ago when that lovely video was made. So if you have anything that you'd like to contribute to that side of things, or indeed the cross-sector working group, and as said, we're very keen to go beyond industry stakeholders in that output, or perhaps you have expertise or an interest more generally in the anthropogenic phosphorus cycle that you could bring, we'd really like to hear from you at the email address we've put up there. And that brings to a close the introduction of component 1. I think if we've got questions, then we can take them, but I'll hand over back to Natalie.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to you, Phil, too.